long time. I weeded through all of our photos from this season, looking for one that was amazing, that people hadn't seen that many times yet. And I found this one and I was like, this is it, this is the best one. And I was up there like 3 times, but it's a great photo. So anyways, my name is Megan. How many of you all, just show of hands, are still in school right now? Oh, right, okay, good company, because I am also still in school, believe it or not. Don't ask me what grade I'm in, because I stopped counting a while ago. But I'm a PhD student at UMass Dartmouth, and I'm lucky enough to be working with Greg Scommel and others at the Division of Marine Fisheries, as well as the lovely people of the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, many of whom are here tonight, trying to figure out just how many white sharks are coming to Cape Cod every year. So it's pretty great. And so in school, I'm studying to become what is known as a quantitative fisheries biologist, and all that means is that I'm someone who uses math and knowledge, don't laugh at math and knowledge of a species biology to understand the dynamics of fish populations and answer questions like just how many white sharks are there off of Cape Cod, how is that number changing over time, and perhaps most importantly, what's the status of that population? Is it doing okay? Is it not doing okay? Does it require any sort of further protection? So white sharks became so scarce in the Atlantic in the 1990s that the federal government actually listed them as a prohibited species in 1997, which means you're no longer allowed to go out and try to catch a white shark. If you're out fishing for something else and you accidentally catch one, you have to let it go. And so there are some indications that the population seems to be coming back, but we don't have any hard numbers yet. And so that's what our study is really trying to come up with, is a number for how many white sharks are out there. And so what I do was really best described by another fisheries scientist, John Shepard, who said that counting fish is like counting trees, except the trees are invisible because they're underwater, and they keep moving. So as you can imagine, trying to figure out just how many fish there are in the ocean is a pretty tall order. It can be a tough thing to do. So I am, one of the token local scientists on the panel. I am a Massachusetts resident. You guys are all probably pretty familiar with my study area, Cape Cod. You're also probably pretty familiar with my study subjects. They get a lot of media attention, especially this time of year. But what's really interesting about this whole, hopefully this works. Yay, okay. What's really interesting is that this is a I turned the sound off, but thanks, John, for that dramatic music. But what's really interesting about all of this is that it's a relatively new phenomenon, right? So historically, there wasn't a white shark aggregation site in the North Atlantic. The species was very sparsely distributed and hard to find. Sometimes we would get, temporary aggregations of white sharks at whale carcasses. So we were lucky enough to see this about a month ago in Cape Cod Bay. We had 5 or 6 white sharks feeding on a dead minke whale. So white sharks have a really varied diet. They eat fish, squid, other sharks, but above all else, they love to eat marine mammals. So anytime they find a dead whale, they stick around. And historically, this was one of the best ways that researchers were able to get access to these animals in the North Atlantic. And so, as you all are aware, this has really changed over the course of the past decade. So the seal population off of Cape Cod has really rebounded in response to protections that were put into place by the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And so I don't know how many of you have had the pleasure of spending time near seals, but they're really smelly, kind of disgusting animals. And so anytime you have large numbers of really smelly animals excreting lots of things into the water, you're going to attract predators that like to eat those smelly animals. And so that's what's happened with white sharks off the Cape. The seal buffet is now open. And so for the first time, researchers have predictable access to the species in the North Atlantic. And so what we're currently doing is conducting a population survey of white sharks off the Cape. So how do you survey a shark population? Especially white sharks, their whole strategy is based on stealth. So this photo is a really good illustration of that. You've got a white shark kind of creeping up on 2 seals just off the beach off the Cape. So they don't exactly make their presence known. They don't, stick up a fin, wave it around, and say, "Count me, please let me be part of your survey." Except we had this one who kind of did. Except you'll notice, if you were here last night, Allison showed some great videos of white sharks breaching off South Africa. They all got the seal and looked really graceful and impressive doing it. So this is what our sharks do. But this is, again, a very rare event, and you'll all probably be relieved to know that the seal made it up to the beach. It was fine, and it was a great day. But so the way we find the sharks, since they're not often doing that, is we work with a spotter pilot, the legendary Wayne Davis, to find sharks off of Cape Cod. And the Cape is a really ideal place to do this because we've got beautiful white sandy bottoms that provide great contrast with the body of the animal, as you can see in that bottom photo. And so what we do is we go out on our survey, and Wayne flies around and finds the sharks, and then essentially we just sneak up on the sharks and take videos of them. I'm going to turn the volume down on this one just to start. But this is a video that shows you what it's like to sneak up on a white shark. So this was taken from the research vessel earlier this summer. What you're looking for is a dark purple smudge in the left corner of the screen. As we get a little closer to it, it will become a more shark-shaped smudge. And you'll see in a little bit, you'll be able to see the tail kicking. But this is a great illustration of why we work with a spotter pilot. It's not easy to see these animals. And so, now it's starting to take the shape of a white shark. And, you get up closer to it and you're kind of like, oh my God, it's actually a white shark. And that's kind of my internal monologue every time we do this out on the boat. And so in a second, you're going to see the tagging pole come in from the right. And so this is the same process we use to get the video, but Greg's going to put a satellite tag on this animal in a second here. You'll see that little antenna of the tag swinging around. But what you'll notice is that all of our work is conducted on free-swimming white sharks. So we don't have to capture them or restrain them. It's much less stressful for them and for us. It's just swimming around, going about its business. And so this is to give you an idea of what the GoPro footage looks like, so the underwater footage we're able to capture. This is a shark that is nicknamed Turbo because he's really fast. And what you'll see is that these are, we can tell a lot about these animals from these videos. You see the scratches on the right side of his face, that's from a seal fighting back. And so what we do is we go out and we capture videos of these animals, and then when we get back to the lab, we can review the footage and we can actually identify each individual white shark. And so white sharks have a lot of very unique characteristics, unique colorations, spots, scars, some have injuries. So this is a shark, this is my favorite shark. I know I'm not supposed to have a favorite because I'm a scientist, but his nickname is Lumpy. And you can see it's because he has a big lump on his tail, which we think was a wound inflicted by another shark. And so each shark we identify is entered into our ever-growing white shark catalog. In the first 3 years of our study, we cataloged 279 white sharks. And so what we do, when we do this repeatedly over time, we can actually come up with a population estimate using what are called Mark-Recapture Method. So this is one of the most widely applied ways of estimating wildlife populations. And so what we do if we go out on one survey day and we film Dottie, Lumpy, Scarface, and Stubby, so then we've identified them and we call them marked sharks. Then we go out on our next survey trip and we video Lumpy and Scarface and 2 new sharks. Then doing a little bit of simple math, don't worry too much about the math, but I promised you some math, based on the ratio of the number of sharks we sampled the second time we went out to our number of previously identified or recaptured sharks, we can actually come up with a population estimate, which in this cartoon example would be 8 sharks. So for any of you guys who sit in math class and wonder what you're ever going to use this for, you might need it to estimate the size of shark population one day. So that's, pay attention. Math is very useful. And so just how many white sharks are out there, are off the Cape? I really, really wish I had an answer to that, because it would mean I was done with my PhD. But we're currently in the 4th year of what is going to be a 5-year study, so we're really in data collection mode right now. Again, we've identified 279 sharks, which a lot of people think is a lot, but despite what you heard earlier this summer, we're not experiencing a white shark boom. It's really business as usual out there. And so please keep following our research. Go to our websites, our social media pages. They're really good about posting updates about what we're doing out on the water. And these animals have gotten a lot of negative press. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir in this audience. You all probably like sharks, but spread the word. Be proud. You live next to one of the very few white shark hotspots in the entire world. So go Massachusetts.